What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rovardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and the New York Giants have a rising star on the defensive side of the ball. The fifth overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, Kayvon Thibodeaux, the sack master, the closer. You all know him, you all love him, and we're super excited to see what he does in this upcoming 2023 season, and we're not the only ones. Not just the fans are excited, but the coaches as well. Defensive coordinator Wink Martindale is thrilled for this upcoming season for Kayvon Thibodeaux, describing the player as having no ceiling. And that is pretty high praise from Martindale considering who he's coached in the past. You have the likes of Ray Lewis, CJ Mosley, Elvis Dumervil, Champ Bailey, and Brian Dawkins, some of the best players to ever play the game. Wink Martindale coached during his time with the Baltimore Ravens. So for him to say that Kayvon Thibodeaux has no ceiling and to describe him in the way that he has, pretty exciting stuff for us, for Thibodeaux, and everyone in between. So we're going to go ahead, react to those quotes, and kind of discuss what our expectations are for Kayvon Thibodeaux and the New York Giants defense this upcoming season. But before we dive into all of that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on Wink Martindale's quotes about Kayvon Thibodeaux?
I couldn't be better. And when you have, as you mentioned, a defensive coordinator like Wink Martindale saying such riveting things about your next hopeful star pass rusher, it's certainly a good thing. Wink Martindale, obviously one of the best DCs in football, as many would attest to, and this Giants defense took a big step forward last year. But the problem was we didn't have the necessary pieces that Wink Martindale's defense requires. Now, Joe Schoen understood that, and he went out in this offseason and bolstered the trenches, gave him a lot of good big run stoppers, and got us a linebacker, Bobby Okereke, we just spoke to recently a couple weeks ago. And then you go out and get Deontay Banks, and you get a couple really good players and some really high developmental talent. And you look at Kayvon Thibodeaux, and this guy, and I think he's right, the ceiling is non-existent for a player like Thibodeaux. You know what I mean? You look at a player of his caliber with his athleticism, and you just see brimming positivity, brimming optimism and potential. And I'll read you the quote because it's a really, really good one, and I really think it was worthwhile discussing on this podcast. So Wink Martindale came out and said on the Giants Huddle podcast, first of all, I love the kid himself. I said earlier he has no ceiling, and I believe that because he can do whatever he puts his mind to. We talked about last year after the season was over with. I said, I think you need to get stronger in your legs and your core. That was his focus this year in the offseason, and you're going to see that keep developing. He's going to get better and better every game that he plays here. So what we saw last year from Kayvon Thibodeaux was nothing short of pretty awesome in terms of what his impact was in key moments. He came up big in the fourth quarter on a number of occasions, notably the fumble against Lamar Jackson. You look at what he did against Aaron Rodgers late in the game in London. He did a lot of great things for this team. We called him the closer for a reason. Now, the sacks only had 4, I believe, so the sack numbers weren't necessarily there, but he had a lot of pressures. He came up in big moments. He was situationally there, and he saved up that energy, and he saved up those pass rush moves for when it mattered most, and he came up clutch. Now, if he can piece together his whole game where he could dominate throughout the first 3 quarters and then come alive in the fourth quarter, you're seeing a superstar player develop before your eyes. You're seeing a player that can make an impact throughout a game, create turnovers, create moments for the offense to capitalize on, which we have improved upon pretty significantly this offseason. So Kayvon Thibodeaux increasing his leg strength and core. It's really about building that bull rush out, right? It's really about building that strong core where he's not going to get pushed around. He can maintain his balance and leverage against opposing offensive linemen, and then utilize that to his advantage. I think he relied a lot on his speed and his bend around the edge, but increasing that bull rush success rate, I think is going to allow him to diversify his skill set, diversify his pass rush moves, which then allows him to strategize and game plan his pass rushes, technique a little bit more efficiently, because it's all about setting things up for later in the game. If you're a really good pass rusher, you utilize a pass rush move because you're trying to get someone to take a step inside. You're trying to beat them inside, beat them outside, and then once you're beating them outside, that's when you dart inside because they're anticipating something else. He's all about beating them mentally and also utilizing that strategy to overcome obstacles. So improving his physical nature allows him to build upon the success rate of all those different pass rush moves he has. So, listen to that first quote from Wink Martindale about the ceiling, obviously increasing that leg strength and core strength. What do you think that translates to his sophomore season in 2023?
Well, I think it also helps him a lot with his balance and getting around the edge. When you're talking about the core strength and his leg strength and all the other stuff, kind of like the physical attributes that he can improve on, his athleticism and everything, I think it helps with the bend. And I think when you look at Kayvon Thibodeaux, he has that bend, he has that speed off the edge, of course, but sometimes he is a little out of control. In his rookie season, he would come around the edge too fast or whatever it might be. I think that getting a better core will allow him to kind of keep his balance while running at a lower height, kind of bent over. It's the whole can an NFL player or can a good edge rusher run underneath a table, right? If they can run full speed while running underneath a table, they're a good edge rusher. So I think that's really where the core strength is going to come into play for Kayvon Thibodeaux. Now, his upper body strength, that's going to help with the bull rushes, as you mentioned, and all of that stuff. And speaking of which, Wink Martindale also mentioned that Azeez Ojulari looks like he put on more size, more mass this offseason. So he might be a defensive tackle at this rate if he keeps it up, adding 15 to 20 pounds each offseason. Azeez Ojulari is getting to be a pretty big dude, but hopefully that allows him to kind of play a complementary role to Thibodeaux. And what I mean by that is if Azeez continues to add this weight and add this strength, he might be your power guy, your bull rusher. And then you have Thibodeaux on the opposite side, who's your speed and finesse pass rusher. And I think that could create a nice fire and ice 1-2 combo for the New York Giants pass rushing department on each side of the tackles, which I really, really enjoy. Again, it's all about staying healthy for both of these guys. I mean, Thibodeaux was healthy for the majority of last season. Azeez Ojulari really struggled to stay on the field. But if he could stay on the field alongside Thibodeaux, I think that those two are in store for a really, really good season. But another quote that I really like about Thibodeaux from Wink Martindale, and this is kind of not even something for him on the field, right? You just mentioned the great quote about his core strength, all of that. But I really like these off the field quotes. They just kind of they're enjoyable. Martindale talking about Thibodeaux, saying that he's unbelievable. He's an old school guy who has a lot of aspirations and dreams, and he's going to chase them. And that's good for the Giants. And I just like the way that Martindale is giving this kid a glowing review, mentioning that he loves the kid himself. That's something that Martindale said. One of the things about Kayvon Thibodeaux that I really like, we all know that he's an excellent player with a lot of potential, and he's only scratching the surface of it. But I really like the demeanor that he has, the way that he carries himself, and the way that he makes such a good impression on every single coach, every single fan. He's just a really good, likable guy, and I think that's important for the New York Giants as they continue to build this culture. I've seen Kayvon Thibodeaux in videos talk to Michael Strahan, talk about Michael Strahan, and you can't help but see some of those similarities there, with his showmanship, his charisma, and just how good of a person he is off the field. So I'm not comparing him talent level to Hall of Famer Michael Strahan, but I will say he does kind of remind me of him in many ways. But Alex, what are your thoughts on that? Just kind of Kayvon Thibodeaux. We talk about him being one of these building blocks for the Giants for the foreseeable future, a potential star. But how important do you think it is that he's just a really good person off the field as well for the New York Giants to not only build around on the field, but build around in the locker room?
I remember, and I know you remember this too, a lot of people saying that Kayvon Thibodeaux was a liability. He took off plays. He was a bad locker room guy. We remember all the negative stuff that came out before the draft. And I'm so happy they freaking came out, man. I'm so happy people dogged him because he dropped right into our laps. And it couldn't have gotten any better than that. He was a consensus #1 overall pick for months. Everyone was like, Kayvon Thibodeaux, we're not going to have a chance. We're at 5. No way we're going to get him. By the graces of the gods, a couple negative articles, suddenly he's dropped right in our laps at number 5. And you know what? You never want to hear false claims come out about players, and I think that we can all agree. It's annoying. It's frustrating. They don't deserve it. And ultimately, the reality is it affects their financial livelihood. I know they're making millions of dollars, so it is what it is. But they work so hard and they do a lot of great things and they put everything on the field and they come out with ridiculous articles that have nothing true about them, and it affects your draft stock and it ultimately affects how much money you're going to make. So I can sympathize with players for that on that front, but ultimately falls to the Giants at number 5, ends up being very, very good for our team and our franchise. And what I can say is this: we know for a fact all that nonsense was bullshit. We know for a fact all that nonsense has been put to bed because Kayvon Thibodeaux is not just an energizer in the locker room. He's a good guy off the field. You know what I mean? He does all the things right you want him to do. He works hard. His work ethic is tremendous during the off season, and you're seeing him give a lot back to the community. A lot of these Giants players, man, we get hit up on Instagram every other day from people wanting us to promote these player camps and all these things, Saquon, Isaiah Hodgins, Okariki, everybody's doing great stuff in the community. And that's what you want to see from these players. You know what I mean? In the past, we didn't see a lot of it. Some of the guys like Saquon, of course, did the great stuff they always do. But now it's our whole offense has their own camps and their own things and their own ways giving back to the community. And it's beautiful to see because those things tie right back into the culture. They're giving back. And everyone is seeing that, and everyone appreciates that. So kudos to the Giants and all their players for really rising to the occasion and giving back. And Kayvon Thibodeaux's no different. He has shown and proved to be a tremendous guy in the locker room. He has proven to be a tremendous player, and he, as Wink Martindale said, has no ceiling. The guy can be as great as his mind will take him and his potential will take him. So yes, the intangible traits that he brings are phenomenal. He's a leader, man. He's an energizer bunny. Remember Jabril Peppers, and we always used to say the guy just brings energy. Sterling Shepard just brings energy. When Kayvon Thibodeaux's on the field, everybody around him plays better. That's what makes star players, because everybody around them elevates their game to match that level. Kayvon Thibodeaux's that type of guy, and I think as he gets better, everyone else is going to want to match, and you need those players to win Super Bowls, man. You need those players to win championships on every single sport to elevate everybody else, and Kayvon Thibodeaux, in my opinion, has that element to his game. I imagine you agree with that, no?
I think we're in complete agreement here. I mean, even just taking a look at, not only what Thibodeaux does off the field, as we mentioned, but off the field, how about him buying his mom a house and surprising her? Saw that video on social media the other day. That was pretty cool stuff. You can't hate on this guy. I mean, what you're talking about with, his draft stock and everything, I do think it's interesting. And I know that there's been a lot of Giants fans who have theorized that the Giants were the ones who put out, kind of like the hit pieces on Thibodeaux so that he could fall to number 5 overall. Maybe. That's all speculation. No one's ever been able to confirm such a thing. But if that's what the Giants did, they did the right thing because they got themselves a world-class athlete and a world-class person in Kayvon Thibodeaux. So something to be excited about there. And I will say, before the draft, I didn't see it, him taking off plays. I didn't see that at all. I always thought that this was a high motor player with an unreal amount of potential. And I thought that, off the field, there was no concerns. People wanted to make it seem like there was concerns. I didn't understand where it was coming from at all. And so I'm just happy that it shaped out the way that it did. He landed in the laps of the New York Giants. And now I truly believe this is going to be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL in due time and for a long time. So that's always something to be excited about. But before we wrap, Alex, I do want to ask your thoughts on the other New York Giants pass rusher. Not the main topic of today's episode, but I hinted at Azeez Ojulari earlier, and I want to know what your thoughts are on him going into this upcoming season. This will be his 3rd season, and I know a lot of Giants fans are kind of mixed on Ojulari right now. He was a really exciting pick in the 2nd round of the 2021 NFL Draft. He fell into our laps, another one of those players that fell into our laps, and no one expected to get him with a 50th overall selection. Set a record as a rookie, most sacks for a Giants player in history in their rookie season. Year 2, I mean, this past season, looked phenomenal when he was on the field. What did he play? 7 games, 5.5 sacks? I mean, that's an insane ratio, but he just wasn't on the field. He was only on the field for 7 games. So now a lot of Giants fans are feeling a bit lukewarm on Azeez Ojulari. Wink Martindale talked about him, said, quote, "You can see that Azeez is taking care of his body. To me, he looks bigger than he did last year, and I'm excited to see him get going as well." That's what Martindale said about Ojulari. So I will say, him getting bigger maybe is a little bit of a cause for concern. He added the weight last season, and he had a lot of injuries. What do you think about that? Do you think that the added weight is part of the reason that he keeps getting injured? Do you think that him showing up to camp this offseason again with more mass, do you think that might be a cause for concern? Or do you think that maybe it was just kind of a bad luck year for Ojulari and you're still high on him and think he still has a bright future?
I think that Ojulari, people are overblowing the injury proneness so much, guys. I mean, come on. He played 17 games in his rookie season. Does everyone just forget about that? Everyone forget about that he played 17 games in his rookie season, and he got a lot bigger, and I think that impacted his health. I think he was hurt in the beginning, and they didn't really treat him properly. I think the turf hopefully makes a big difference here. Look, if he's hurt all of this upcoming season, we can talk about being injury prone. We can have that discussion. Say, you know what, we have a big sample size here. I think we can make that claim. Right now, I'm not making that claim. I'm saying right now he's coming back healthy. He's going to make a big impact. The guy played not even 6 full games, and he had 6 sacks. Right? He was averaging a sack per game. He would have destroyed any other competitor on this team in the sack category and probably the pressures category. If he is healthy and Kayvon Thibodeaux is healthy and Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence are healthy, we are going to have one of the more potent pass rushers in football. And I'll bank on that. If they are all healthy, we will have one of the best pass rushers in football. They are extremely efficient. They're extremely talented. Ojulari is a pass rush maestro. Now, he added that weight so that he could be a better run stopper. He added that weight so he could seal the edge. And I think that maybe his body was not ready for it. I think that he may have to lose a little bit of that weight, maybe stay around 5 pounds added, not 10 pounds of muscle. So we'll see kind of how this progresses here. But keep in mind, like, do you remember what the injuries were? I don't even necessarily remember what they were.
I think at one point he twisted his ankle and maybe it was a calf injury. I think those
right.
were, it was 2 different leg injuries. I think one was an ankle and one was a calf.
So on the bright side, we know that it's not that knee that everyone was concerned about during the draft process. They've been anomalies. Like, the injuries haven't been like, oh, it's the knee injury again. Oh, it's popping up. Ankle injuries are just freak accidents. I mean, if you've ever had a twisted ankle, they just happen. Like, you can't control that. And then you look at, calf injuries. You ever watch baseball? Watch Giancarlo Stanton get a calf injury. You'll see him out for like 6 months. So, calf injuries linger. Those are really tough to come back from. Another anomaly because it's not the knee injury. So I think that if he can get back to 100%, I'm pretty confident that he can play consistently. Now, would I be giving him a snap count? Would I be like trying to give him some slack? Absolutely, but I would be doing that for everybody. That's why you bring in Quincy Nunez-Roche. That's why you bring in A'Shawn Robinson. You have O'Shane Ximines coming back. I do feel as though we need more supplementary pass rushers. We need more guys that can take some of the pressure off Tibbs, and we need some guys that can take pressure off of Ojulari. But that's just natural rotation stuff. I do believe that Ojulari can return to 100% healthy and stay that way. Now, if he gets injured, like I said, we'll have to have a conversation about being injury prone. But right now, I'm not ready to say he's injury prone. I'm ready to say that I think he can come back healthy and make a significant impact. But if this season goes the same way as last year, then we can have that conversation.
I completely agree with you. I don't think that it's fair to label him as injury prone. It's not like he's had a recurring injury. It's not like he continues to hurt his knee, as you mentioned. That was the one that had some concerns prior to the draft. I mean, I think the calf hampered him for the majority of the season. That was the one that kept lingering, and sometimes that happens. But he played through it. He played great when he was on the field. He just couldn't stay on the field last season, and I think it's a lot of it was because the Giants were playing winning football, and they needed him out there, so he was rushing back in. But I do think that this offseason, he just chills out, gets healthy. Coming into this upcoming season, I think that he will be just fine, and I don't have necessarily any massive concerns about his health. But as you mentioned, if he does get hurt this year, sure, then we could talk about him being injury prone. But right now, I don't think he's injury prone. I think he just had bad luck for his second season, his sophomore season. But I'm really high on Azeez Ojulari. I do still believe in him, and I believe in Kayvon Thibodeaux as well. And I do believe that duo is going to be elite in due time. I think that give it this upcoming season, the Giants made a lot of improvements. Think about it in a couple different ways. They upgraded a cornerback. That helps the pass rushers. That extra second that nobody's open, that's an extra second where Azeez Ojulari or Kayvon Thibodeaux is turning a pressure into a sack and making a big play. And as we know with both of those players, a lot of the times when they get sacks, they also force fumbles. I think Azeez Ojulari had 5.5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles last season or something crazy like that. He's a strip sack maestro. He's just not on the field enough to be one. So give him that extra time. He'll do it. He'll get a couple of those strip sacks. So I think that when you look at the way that the defense is being constructed right now, upgrade at linebacker, upgrade at cornerback, it's going to benefit the pass rushers. So I do believe that there's a huge year in store for both Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeaux, and I can't wait to watch them. Hopefully, sack Jalen Hurts 7 times in one game. That's what I'm hoping for. But what are you hoping for? Let us know down below in the comment section your thoughts on the topic, on Azeez Ojulari, on Kayvon Thibodeaux, and Wink Martindale, and everything in between. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
TVSO.